Okay, so today we're going to look at installing LinuxMint 19.3 on a Windows 10 virtual machine. There's a number of reasons why you might want to do this. It will allow you to test an installation of many versions of Linux without actually installing them on your hard drive. It also allows Linux to run in sandbox, so you won't have any security problems or issues between that and the host operating system. First thing we need to do is to download Virtualbox. The link will be in the comments below. Virtualbox is a free piece of software, and of course it's available at virtualbox.org. It will work on a Mac or Linux or on Windows. Today we'll be looking at the Windows version. Once we've downloaded it, we can just accept the defaults all the way through at each stage of the installation process. Virtualbox is now going to provide a safe interface to us to experiment with different operating systems, not just with Linux. You'll find a number of images that you can use. You can install from ISO images or regularly downloaded VM machines. I believe you can use Virtualbox to work with Android, macOS, with a few tweaks, and of course any version of Linux, and some rarer operating systems also. So here's the basic one I already have set up, but we're going to be installing 19.3. So we're going to set up a new virtual machine. So I set up a new machine. These are just containers that hold the different operating systems within your operating system. So we go to LinuxMint.com, find the latest version, which is Tricia 19.3. We select the Cinnamon version. There are 3 different versions. You can try all of them. I favour the Cinnamon desktop slightly, but try them all, see which one you like before you install it on your hard drive. This also provides a safe environment for you to test software on Linux without influencing your main machine. So we're going to set up a container now within Windows. And we name it something appropriate, then we can find it again afterwards. Normally it'll select the right version of Linux for you on this drop down. I generally recommend that you use half the memory that your machine has to allow the VM to expand. This is obviously dependent on how many VMs you're going to be running at one time. The majority of machines should have 4 GB free. Linux takes less memory than Windows does anyway, so it's quite possible to run it on a couple of gigabytes of RAM. We then have to select a virtual hard disk. This is just a large file that contains the whole of this virtual machine within it, and again within the host machine environment. We'll accept the default of VDI. It's worked on everything I've ever tried it on. We can dynamically allocate space so that we can have quite a large partition, but it will only occupy the space on the machine that it actually needs, and it will expand if it needs more as it goes along. So you can have a number of large virtual drives without them interfering with each other. You can store it in a separate partition or even a separate drive. I'm going to select 30 gigabytes. which is ample for a quick test of Linux. Linux is pretty economical on hard drive space, but if you're installing a lot of software you may need to make it larger. We're now going to customize some of the settings to make this work more effectively. Have a look at all these settings. You can only change them when the VM itself is not running. Because I've got a CPU that has several cores, I can actually set this to run on 2 cores. As regards the display, we can enable more video memory than 16 megabytes. 128 is nothing really for a VM, and you can set it to run across a number of monitors if you have them, which I do. Generally you tend to install it and then go back and tweak some of these settings when it's not running. I do have 2 monitors installed. We'll leave 3D acceleration off for now. And again, we need to check the types of storage that are available. I need to set it for a solid state drive. If you have one, you should also select that and it will optimize the file system. It will depend on the host machine's audio chips to get audio in and out of the VM. And then you can set up additional ports, such as additional USB ports. Not going to do that today, we'll just run it in basic mode. All I have to do now is start the virtual machine and tell it which image to import to run. So this is the virtual machine, and we need to select the startup disk, which will be the ISO that we just downloaded to our Windows download folder. So we're going to select an ISO. We need to add it because this is one we haven't used before, and sure enough, it's right at the top of the list in the today. So select the 64-bit ISO, which is what I downloaded, and we'll open it. And then choose it. So it will just boot on the BIOS like any other machine, and we go straight into the Linux boot screen. There's a number of options there, but all we need to do is start LinuxMint because it'll run as a live CD. While we're running it in this live CD mode, it is not going to install anything on the hardware. It is just going to provide an environment and run it as if it was running from a USB stick or a DVD. That will allow you to test out your hardware, your sound and graphics, and perhaps network software, hardware, to make sure everything runs as expected. It does take a little bit longer to boot this way. So here we are with the Virtualbox running Linux 19.3, and I like to check a few basic things first. Ensure we have an internet connection, and it's gone straight to linuxmint.com, which is the default. We'll go to Google just to prove that that's running okay. Yes, Google's there. And then we'll go to YouTube. Then we'll just do a little test. And of course, going to YouTube, there is only one channel I want to look at. You can probably guess what it is, because it's Compilate.box. So we'll just run a short intro video. Not going to attempt to run anything at full screen or anything at the moment, just seeing as it can process the graphics and play it at all, because as I say, it's running in a live CD. We're not going to get the optimum performance yet. And there we are, that's the intro video. All we need to do now is to install from the live CD onto our hard drive, or at least the VM's hard drive. So once you install it properly onto the VM, any changes you make will be saved. You can configure it exactly the way you want to use it. So just select whatever country you're in. I'm in England, I'm in the UK, so I need a different keyboard layout. Then I'll just verify it by typing some English specific keyboard layout characters, which I occasionally fall over if I've got it set to US. Just a different keyboard layout, so that's the one I need. And then press continue when you're happy. If you get a reasonably fast internet connection, it's a good idea to download the 30-party graphics and any updates, and then it's all pretty much ready to go. Otherwise you've got to hunt all over the place. People are nervous about erasing disks, but because we're running it in a virtual machine, we can do no harm. Everything is sandboxed. It's not going to affect the host machine's hard drive. I'm going to show you it's only one drive and it's SDA. I have several drives on my host machine. You can't see those. It's perfectly safe. You can tell from the size of it that is the VM hard drive that we set up. I'm going to allow it to erase that disk and install Linux Mint within this 32 gig partition. You do have options to encrypt it and to use LVM. LVM enables you to take snapshots and edit the partitions later, but again, because I'm doing it in a VM, that is less relevant. You could choose to do that if you're doing a full installation. Now I have to accept the changes and allow it to partition the disk before we can go any further. So this is preparing the hard drive, and now we need to select our time zone. It knows I'm in London, or at least the UK, and that's the time zone I'm interested in. If you want to select Canada, you can do that, and of course it'll bring up the right one. Wherever you are, select the right time zone. That will set the clock for you. So we need a username. I'm electing for my favourite one. And you'll notice it appends Virtualbox onto the end of it. That becomes a problem when you're working in the terminal, so I'm actually going to make that shorter. That just makes it a lot clearer. Use a password that you can obviously remember, because this is going to be the admin user. Yes, I'm using a weak one, but again, it's in a virtual machine environment. I just added a couple of digits on the end to make it a bit more complex. Again, I can leave it on login automatically because it's a VM environment. If you were running a VM permanently, it would be very wise to require a password to log in. Then we can continue, and it'll set up that user account as the first user account for us. Of course, you can add new accounts and change them later on once you've got it installed. Okay, so this is taking a little longer than normal, and the main reason for that is because I'm using the screen recorder. So I'm actually recording the whole process as I'm doing it. So I'm running this video at ultra fast speed. Normally takes about 15 minutes on my computer with an SSD to install Linux, and about the same for the VM. So I'm going to make it whiz through at hyper speed, otherwise we'll be here all day. There we go. And now we can click to restart our VM. We'll now reboot the virtual machine. And as it shuts down, it'll ask us to remove the installation media. We select devices, and it's already done it for us. It's one of the improvements they've made on Virtualbox. Just need to hit enter, and our VM's running now on its virtual hard drive. There's a few options on that screen that you can check memory and check the installation media, but we can go straight in confidently. We bypass the login screen and it's gone straight in. Now, the warning about the video drivers will occur at the moment because of the virtual machine environment, so we can ignore that. We should insert the Insert Guest Editions image. This will install additional drivers for sound and graphics and network. Just need to authorize it to run as a super user. So we use our password that we set up, and this will take a few minutes to install the VM Editions modules. All the settings you saw about USB and sound and graphics, this is going to help all of those things run in the optimum way for your hardware. So it basically provides an abstraction layer. That's finished, so we can press return. It's a good idea to reboot the machine at this stage, check everything's okay before we get too involved. Even though it's not compulsory, at this early stage it's a good idea to have the environment as close to the finished environment as possible. Okay, going to nag us about the driver again. And we now maximise the screen, and there you go. That's your VM ready to use.